Today's guest is Bethany Wiley from Little Red and Her Horses, and I am really excited for you to hear this one. Bethany is passionate about nutrition and conditioning for equine longevity, and she just shares such a real and grounded look at life with horses, barn management, lessons, horse care, all the behind the scenes pieces that come with building a program and managing horses well. And that is exactly why I wanted to have her on the podcast, because this conversation really highlights something I believe deeply, which is that some of the biggest factors affecting your riding are not always happening in the saddle. Horse care and nutrition are a lot like mindset in that way. They can be easy to overlook, but they influence so much. So if you care about better care, better rides, better performance, and better partnership, this episode is for you. Welcome to The Resilient Reiner, the premier podcast focused on mental performance for equestrians and improved horse show performance. Whether you're a rookie reiner or a seasoned competitor, this show is for riders who want to take their skills to the next level and achieve their full potential in the show ring. I'm Nicole Burnett, and I'm a master mindset coach who's obsessed with helping you achieve all those horse dreams you always thought were impossible. Join me each week to develop a show-ready mindset and gain the competitive edge you need to compete with confidence. Thank you for taking the time to come on and do this. I really appreciate it. And yeah.
Well, I appreciate you messaging me and inviting me to be on here.
Yeah. Well, good. So assume most people haven't met you. So tell us a little bit about your story. And I know that you have Little Red. So tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about Little Red too.
Well, when I was little, I've always loved horses, but my family was not like a farm family at all. Like we barely had dogs or cats. And when I was about 9, my dad got me horseback riding lessons. And of course, I fell in love with it. I did have to stop for like 2-ish years. And then I got my own horse at 14. And it kind of multiplied from there very fast. We're up to 26 horses now. Now, a few of those are boarded. I kind of got my parents into it as well, and now my husband's into it a little bit anyway. Started breeding some. I have my own stallion, hoping to stand another one here in next couple years anyway. Doing riding lessons, boarding. I do a little bit of everything, really.
Mm-hmm.
And barrel racing, funny enough, I started out doing dressage,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went to jumping. And I want to say about 2018, I started barrel racing, and it has never stopped.
Well, I can see the through line there. It's the adrenaline, right? Jumping,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
everything makes a lot of sense. So one of the things that I've noticed too, that when I see you posting online, is you'll post a lot about just, I would describe as kind of these horsemanship and like unsexy basics, which
Yeah.
is so important, but it's it's not like the highlight reel for most people. So what really
Right.
drew you to wanting to share that kind of those topics?
Well, a lot of people, I think, when they post online, they kind of post snippets of
Mhm.
owning horses and being around horses, and they post all the good stuff.
Yeah.
I think I like to be a little bit more on the real side, because this is not something that's easy. It's not like having a pet dog or cat. I mean, you can't just find somebody to take care of your horse to go on vacation that doesn't know how to take care of horses. I mean, it's easy to find somebody to take care of your dog, but not a horse. And the health aspect of horses is a lot more complicated, I feel like. I worked as a vet tech for a few years, and the difference between what goes on with your dog or your cat and what goes on with a horse is a lot.
Yeah.
I've learned that over the years, especially 2024, we had kind of a tough year. And that is where I think I shared a lot of the negatives of owning horses. But there's positives too. Like, that's why I try to keep it real.
Yeah.
I don't like to just post the good stuff. It's not who I am. Like, I want to be real. I want people to know that are maybe interested in owning a horse or riding horses, that there's more to just ride than just riding them.
Yeah.
It's I think a lot of people, especially when they get into horses, they think it's riding them and then you just throw them a scoop of grain and have hay out there and they're good.
You're like, I wish.
Yeah. I'm thankful to have a nutritionist that works with my horses. I'm trying to think of how I want to word this. I just drew like a brain.
Nutrition. Why can't I'll just respond and then it'll prompt you again? Because well, it made me think of two things. One, literally yesterday, I was totally had plans and I was gonna do stuff, and I totally had to change my plans because it's been raining an obscene amount lately. And
Yeah.
it's like a lake out there. And I'm walking around and I just face planted. Like I was just covered in mud and
Oh my gosh.
and it was so muddy and I was like, oh my God. And then I was so muddy. I was like, I can't even just throw these straight in the washer. It's too much. So I had to I'm standing outside hosing myself off to get the mud off before I could go inside and take it all off to throw it in the washer. And I didn't post that. Yeah. I mean, it's real, but I'm just there da, 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 da.
Yeah.
So I think we could just all relate to there's so much more to horses than you're clean, they're clean, everything's great.
Exactly.
But the nutrition, tell me more about that because I've always been very interested in it, but using my own animals as my mini science experiment, I've seen some really interesting things happen based on what I feed them. So tell me about your experience, what made you start caring more about what you feed besides throw them a hay or a bag of grain at the food store?
Well, last year I had a 3-year-old that I sent off to training, and sometimes they're a little wonky. When I sent him off, he was just a 2-year-old. He was almost 3. So, at first I was just maybe he's just a little wonky, they go through stages where they're kind of ugly. But I always felt like he could look better. He was never skinny, but he wasn't like some of the other 2 and 3-year-olds I've seen. And when I got him back, he still wasn't really putting on the weight that I wanted. And I had 24/7 hay. I felt like I was feeding him a good amount of grain, but not too much grain either. I took him to the vet. My vet was like, let's treat him for EPM. Let's just roll with that. I don't think he has ulcers. And still, he was still he put on a little bit of weight after we treated him for EPM, but he was I would say under muscled more than skinny, and he shouldn't have been for being in work and everything.
Yeah.
So I ended up messaging Rachel. She's with BSC 5.0 Nutrition. And I was like, look, I don't know what's going on, but I can't get weight on this horse. And she kind of taught me, a lot about how you need to weigh your feed more. You don't just throw them a scoop. The hay that you feed them matters, because you could be feeding them, as much hay as they want, but if it's not high enough in carbs or high enough in protein, especially a young growing horse, they're not gonna blossom like they could on a high quality forage. So she taught me a lot about the forage testing. And I think I would say that is the most important part of my feed program now. Getting all my hay tested, and alfalfa. Love alfalfa.
I'm sure most people have never actually tested their hay. So
Right.
when you say that, what does that mean? What was that process? I mean, is it like a pH strip? I mean, you send it off, but tell people, walk them through, what does that mean?
So since I'm working with Rachel, I don't do any of the hay testing part. I just pull some hay samples from my hay, put them in a little baggie, and ship them to her, and she sends it off for me to a testing. To be completely honest, I'm drawing a blank on where she sends it off to, but she sends it off. She reviews it for me, So I'm kind of spoiled in the fact that she goes over everything for me and then tells me what I need to do.
Now,
But that's pretty much it.
yeah, no, I love that. And tell a little bit about the hay, because so for my context, I grew up in Washington State, and so everybody just fed grass because
Right.
that was what was grown. It wasn't, you just didn't think about it. And we had some really beautiful grass hay, to be clear. Like, it was really
Yeah.
nice hay. But then when, like, I'm in Utah now, and it was a big shift because everybody feeds alfalfa, and
Yeah.
it a little bit demonized. And so I'm an alfalfa convert at this point. Like, my
Yeah.
horse looked amazing on alfalfa.
Yeah.
But I'm sure other people are kind of a little bit about, like, well, what is alfalfa? Why are you feeding that? So what made you choose working with your nutritionist?
Well, I've always kind of been a fan of alfalfa with the performance horses, and even the growing horses. But the alfalfa that I was previously using, I didn't have tested or anything. So I've been using the Stanley Bells just because being in South Carolina, we kind of have a limited alfalfa supply.
Yeah.
And Stanley, we have the test. It's a little bit easier to work with and balance their diet.
Yeah.
So with Ripley, that was my 3-year-old last year that we were really struggling with. She was like, he's growing, he's got a lot going on, training, all that. Let's give him some alfalfa because of the high protein and the energy it's going to give him, because my hay was a little bit low in carbohydrates. So his energy was a little bit low. That's kind of where we started with the alfalfa. And my hay that we tested at the time, I'm still feeding that hay to some of the horses, but we actually just shipped off another sample of hay that I got for my brood mares, and I'm waiting to hear back on those results. But that hay was just a little bit on the lower quality side, which I'm not entirely surprised because it was a round bale, and I do feed round bales just because I have so many. It makes it a little bit easier on me. So in order to kind of supplement the lower quality hay that I free choice, we kind of needed another forage to give them all the vitamins, the protein, a little bit more without overloading them on grain.
Yeah. No, I think that is so smart. I've kind of come to that too, where I'm a huge believer in just hay prevents so many problems, both digestive and also behavioral. I have young horses, and they are always looking for trouble if they get bored. So I'm just like, they need hay. They need to be eating food. And then it prevents a lot of mischief. But that's the thing too, is finding the balance. And I think people just saying that out loud is so useful for people to hear of. It's okay to have different hay sources. And so it's okay to have maybe a cheaper, lower quality hay that you're like, this is your snacking food. This is, like, just stay busy, stay out of trouble food. And then we make sure that the nutrition is balanced by making sure you also get some of this, like, really tasty other food.
Exactly.
And so tell me, because my horses are also, they're obsessed with alfalfa. That's all they want to eat. Like, I'm not even kidding you. So do your horses do the thing where they're like, well, we don't want to eat this grass hay because we're alfalfa or plus. We're on like a hunger strike. So have you run into that?
So the only horse that I've really run into that with is one of my boarders horses. She's an older mare too, so I don't know if that has a little bit to do with it. Like, she knows what she needs kind of thing. But like my horses, they're fatties. They will eat anything and everything. Like, I have to watch them. I have to make sure my pastures are clean because they will find a piece of trash and probably they would try to eat it.
Well, everybody take hope then. My horses are just divas, I believe. Well, that's so neat. So one of the things I'm really curious what you've come to, because forage is the foundation.
Right.
Absolutely. So how much do you like supplement? And by that, I mean both concentrated feed as well as any sort of supplements.
Right.
So how does that fit into your program on top of like testing your hay so that you know what you're feeding and how much protein they're getting and all of that?
So I kind of have Rachel like go over my horses. I have a lot of different horses. I have right now anything from a weanling to a 25-year-old horse. So we kind of go over each, stage. Like, I have a certain concentrate for my growing horses, certain concentrate for my seniors and my barrel horses, and just my maintenance horses. I personally do not like to feed a lot of grain, but the forage around here, like, unless I were to maybe get lucky, the forage around here that we have, it is a little bit harder to give them all their vitamins and minerals, especially the growing and the performance horses, what they need to run and to grow. So I do feed a little bit of grain. I kind of went down the forage only trend a little bit, but I did find that my horses felt like they were lacking in that just a little bit, like energy wise. Some of my horses are still forage only, but those are the ones that kind of just chill in the pasture and sit there. So I do supplement a little bit of grain, specifically to the growing and the performance horses. I do have a few that are maintenance that I feel like they do need a little bit as well, but some of mine do just fine on hay and minerals. That's just my opinion. That's just what works for me. What works for me may not work for somebody else, especially if you're in a different area. I always feel like evaluating it, though, is a good idea to find out exactly what your horses are getting. Because, I mean, behaviorally, just overall appearance, ever since I did that and kind of just made sure what exactly my horses were eating, their vitamins, their minerals, all that, my horses' attitudes, their performance, it's completely changed. They're doing like so much better. They look better. They feel better. It's like a 360.
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially if you have horses that are doing less physical activity, but any horse that's in work, they need that nutrition and that power that comes from good food. It's so interesting because I've always been kind of interested in nutrition. And so like even way back when, I would use Feed Excel, which is like a free online nutrition calculator. Or like horse nutritionists were a thing, but you can plug in all your food, what you're feeding, and it'll show you like, you know, are you lacking in things? And because for a while I was like, oh, well, can we do this with just hay, or like, let's do forage only, or use alfalfa pellets, or, you know, not do any grain. And I was so intrigued because even if they were at like a good weight, things that I know, because I'd always fed like a ration balancer. And then when I was like, oh, we're going to just do all forage only. And I tried it and I didn't like how they looked. Like I did that for, I don't know, it was probably a year or two. And I was like, they're not looking good the way they should, but not really. And the biggest things I noticed was I feel like it's a lot of the, like the micronutrients and things are like that come in a concentrated feed that you don't get if even like your hay, because I was like, my hay is popping, it's good. But like if you're just adding in like hay pellets or even beet pulp, like it just wasn't, I guess, not enough. And the micronutrients, some of the big things I really noticed were hoof quality. That was honestly like the biggest driver why I went back to like adding in concentrated things was hoof quality. Their hoof quality has gone up because it was really good. And then it kind of was like, it's just not as good. And then it's gotten better again. And that's totally from the food. And the other one, because you're talking about minerals, is any sort of like skin crud. Because especially with geldings, like skin crud on their legs or just little scruffy things in the winter. No problem since I've gone back to supplementing and making sure that all of those minerals are fed. Like it's, so the hoof and the skin, it's undeniable. So I'm off the forage only bandwagon. Like,
I actually had my 22-year-old mare that I still run on barrels. It was like over the summer, her hair looked horrible. And in the winter, she would be a little bit more prone to rain rot. And that was when I was experimenting with the forage only. Then I got in touch with Rachel and everything, and she's dappled up. I mean, like, she looks phenomenal. And that all we did was just make sure her minerals and her feed and her hay and all that were all balanced together, and that's all we changed.
Amazing. I love it because it really is. I view nutrition as it's kind of like mindset because it's all about the inside out, right? Where you're like, you get your feed program dialed in, they just look good.
Yeah.
and same thing, like, that's why I think about it like mindset, right? You get your mindset right, and then you're just start riding better. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
lines up. That's so cool. So I hear you saying because you have horses at a lot of different stages, which is really cool. So you have
Yeah.
everything from weanlings to these, older senior horses. What do you adjust the most in terms of your feeding program then?
Right now, for example, my brood mares are on a completely different hay than my maintenance horses. The
Mhm.
brood mares and the performance horses are sharing the same hay right now, and the growing horses. Well, growing horses are half and half, so they kind of get a mix right now. But the other hay I feed, I don't want to feed it to my brood mares because it is fescue, and
Mhm.
not touching that. So my brood mares don't get that. But I would say the most I adjust besides that would be the type of grain that I do feed and the amount. I always kind of feed the amount based off their weight and their activity level. I do kind of go with the bag, but if it's one of my horses that Rachel works with, I just roll with whatever she says. But besides that, like my barrel horses, I have my 22-year-old mare on Cosequin by Nutramax,
Mhm.
uh, for her joints, just because she's a little bit older. She does get joint injections, but that's a whole nother discussion. There is joint injections. Besides that, I give them Replenimash for electrolytes, and that's my working horses. But my hay was deficient, and I want to say it was fluoride. So
Mhm.
Rachel did suggest feeding Replenimash to quite a few of my horses, different amounts, of course, but besides that, I don't really supplement a whole lot.
Mhm.
I do have little supplements here and there. That line Equine has a few good ones that I really use. I like their electrolyte paste, especially before I run. But really, the biggest thing is just making sure they're balanced. I'm not a huge supplement person in the sense of let me just throw a bunch of supplements, because that's what I used to do. Is I would supplement a lot and feed forage,
Yeah.
and that's what didn't work for me. So if I supplement, it's gonna be something that's like for their joints or electrolytes.
Yeah. So I hear you saying it's very targeted. So before you
Right.
used to just
Yes.
whatever and supplement kind of a lot. And part of it too is I'm trying to share like the process of what it was like for you to work with your nutritionist,
Yeah.
because if someone's interested, of where it's really shifted to testing your forage, that's
Right.
really the baseline. And that's, you said, was the biggest thing that you would adjust based, like on the amount the horse was in work, is kind of the
Yeah.
type amount of, forage. And then from there, sounds like finding a solid concentrate that covers your bases. And then maybe some of the horses might have a very targeted supplement, but
Right.
it's a different approach. And I think that sounds very sustainable,
Yeah.
because you're just getting those building blocks dialed in.
Yeah.
So if someone, they're just going along, and are there any signs that you would say that owners should stop ignoring something, that you're like, oh, there, you could make a few changes that would be more doable than you think,
Yeah.
but have a big payoff?
Um, Kind of going back to what you were saying about the hoof quality. If you're seeing poor hoof quality, or a horse that's prone to thrush, that's not like in muddy conditions, or just overall like not poor body condition, but just kind of meh. Like they just don't look 100%, or
Yeah.
they're not acting 100%. If you've got a horse that used to run barrels really, really hard, and you're taking them to the vet, and your vet's like, I don't see anything, we can inject or
Yeah.
whatever, but something just doesn't add up. I feel like a lot of our problems are just, we're just throwing stuff to them, and we're not evaluating what's going on in the inside.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. It's just look at your horse, and if something is not thriving,
Right.
like just know in the back of your mind that nutrition can be a contributing factor, and one that most people never consider, right? So
Right.
your skin condition's off, if the energy's off, if the hooves aren't quite great, like it's not just throw up your hands. It's,
Yeah.
hey, check your diet, because there's a lot that can be going on there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And then, so a big part of this would be consistency, right? You have to get the feed all the time.
Yeah.
I know I think about that when it's nasty weather and you're like, all right,
Yeah.
consistency, we're doing it.
Yeah.
So for you, how do you stay consistent in doing all of this?
Well, there at the beginning when I first kind of transitioned back into feeding grain, I had a little bit of problems getting a hold of my grain. So I ended up just doing an auto ship because it was starting to stress me out. My feed stores would run out of it and all that. So I started doing that. As far as like when the weather's bad, sometimes I do have to sit there and tell myself, get out of bed, Bethany. It's okay. You wanted this. um, I think we all have those days where sometimes we're like, oh, really? But then again, you have to go back and you have to think, like, it's a blessing to own these animals, and they rely on us to take care of them. They can't take care of themselves. I mean, they could if they were out in the wild, but to thrive, they rely on us to take care of them. And you can't take that for granted. And that's what I have to tell myself when I'm having a bad day or it's a busy day, like sometimes it sucks. Sometimes, like I've experienced a lot of loss as far as I have a farm, I have other animals. I've lost one of my good mares to like a totally random situation. We never did get answers to what happened to her. So sometimes you'll have stuff like that, but you have to remind yourself that the good days are better than the bad days. And if you pick this life, then you picked it.
Yep. That's wonderful. So what does a normal day look like for you with everything you have going on?
I would say I never have a normal day. But, getting out, feeding the horses. I have goats. Right now I have had 9 baby goats recently. I've got 3 mares bred this year. So my normal days have now transitioned into full watch. My mare just hit 321 days. So we're watching her. But I give riding lessons usually in the afternoons. I have some homeschool students that come in the mornings. I board, I barrel race on the weekends when the weather's good lately. It's been the same here lately. I'm actually covered in mud right now. Lately, our weather sucks. But, taking care of the horses is like the only thing that stays consistent in my schedule. I brought home a pony last week, brought home a pig yesterday. Like, my schedule's so random. It's chaos. My husband's mad at me right now for bringing home the pig, but
is it like a pet pig or like a bacon pig?
it's pet pig. So I don't know. I think somebody really needs to take away my free will of just bringing home animals because that is my life. It's just, oh, you want this free animal? Sure, yeah, I'll take it. But that's just how I've always been. Like, I've always had a soft spot for animals, especially horses. I mean, horses will always be my number one, I think. And growing as a competitor and a breeder in the horse industry, that is my number one. But the little animals, they make me happy. And especially if I see one that needs a home. Like this pony that I got, he has laminitis, he has overgrown hooves. The lady I got him from rescued him from a sale barn. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to her about it, and I was like, I can't pass this up. Like I feel so bad for the little guy. He needs some rehab. I love to do little rehab cases like that. I'm very passionate in taking an animal that wasn't taken care of and bringing it back to health and all that. Mm-hmm. So literally, I never have a normal day.
With all of this, like if we're looking at that lifestyle and care, what have you noticed in terms of vet care and farrier care as it relates to how you've updated your nutrition?
Well, I actually trim my horses myself. To begin with, obviously, I learned a lot from several farriers. I have friends that trim their own horses that gave me advice. Vet work is very important. Personally, go to my vet for advice when I have a horse that's losing weight and all that, of course. But I do like using a nutritionist because I feel like, it's like us with the doctor. Like you have your skin doctor, your eye doctor, your dentist. I think it can go the same for the horse industry. vets are obviously the most qualified. I like to hear people that have specialized in certain things. So, like your hoof care, your farrier, obviously. Like this little pony I got, I'm obviously not comfortable trimming him yet. I don't have the knowledge behind laminitis like that. So I'm not trimming him. I'm using a farrier. His diet, a vet, kind of gave us the base for it. But I am going to Rachel about what all we need to feed him to the exact. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about a horse that you almost gave up on and what turned it around.
So, which this is what a lot of people I think know me by, but my little buckskin, his name's Cisco. I have not posted him a lot recently, but when I first started my social media, that was who I posted a lot. I got him. He was a kill pin rescue. This was Bethany's learning experience for sure. I really thought I want to train my own barrel horse. He was a little bit of a wild child. I've fallen off of him. I couldn't tell you how many times. He was frustrating. He broke pattern a lot. I did want to give up on him. I had quite a few tears coming out of the arena several times. And, I just stayed consistent with him. I would take him in the alleyway and get off of him in the alleyway and loosen his girth and just like, hey, this is an okay place to be. Of course, I got him vetted, making sure that he's feeling good. I think that's an important thing when you're struggling with a horse is to check with your vet and make sure that they're not hurting anywhere. Because 9 times out of 10, when you have a horse that's acting out, I do feel like they're hurting somewhere. Horses they're not trying to be petty. They're trying to communicate something, and you've got to figure out what it is. And that's what it was for him. He was a little on the lazy side, and he was not hurting anywhere. He was trying to communicate that I needed to communicate differently. And that's how I just kind of got him where he was running really good. I took him to NBHA World, and he did phenomenal there. Eventually, he did get some arthritis in his leg and had a bone chip, and so I did have to retire him, which is why you don't see him on my account much anymore. But I definitely am glad I did not give up on him. I wanted to. But that horse, I have yet to come across a horse that works as hard as he did for me at the end. Like, he did a complete turnaround. He went from not wanting to do anything to I'll do anything for you. And all I did was I spent the time with him, every day, even if it wasn't riding. Going back to what you were mentioning about, like the basics, like what do people miss? I think a lot of people miss the groundwork, like spending time with them out of the saddle. Because not only is that good for you mentally, but it's good for the horse. Because every time you grab them, you're not just putting them to work. You're spending time with them. You're learning their personality, because there's a lot you can learn just on the ground with them.
Oh, yeah.
Their personality under saddle, if you learn what they are on the ground, it's going to help you under saddle to communicate with them better.
And I think that's such a great story, because I'm going to pull out a lesson that changes everything for people when you can actually do this, which is setting your ego aside enough to do the embarrassing, what feels like an embarrassingly small effort, because that's like the story you just like that vignette when you're like this, when we would go to the alleyway. Yeah. And that was it. Right. Yeah. And you're like, yes, no, because that is the kind of thing, like when I work with people, I'll hear people get hung up on this thing all the time where they want the steps to be bigger. Yeah. Instead of being like, no, like you will get there eventually, like cross whatever, but just that you'll get there, but you have to accept that it's really tiny steps and it's like smaller than you want it to be. And so especially like when I've worked with people after they have an accident or something and they're really scared, and it's like, okay, like all I want you to do is just walk out to your horse. Yeah. Until you can do that and just not freak out. Right. And then you're going to pick up the halter. Yeah. And it's just like the tiniest little steps. And you have to just be like, well, that's not good enough. Well, what are you doing right now? 0, nothing. Yeah. Like you have to accept that the process is just is what it is. And then it's small, but it's so hard on people's egos and their perceptions and like how they think it needs to be to
Yeah.
take a small step. And so I love hearing you say that because you're like, yeah, it worked. We would go and stand in the alleyway and then be like, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, no, I love it because yeah, you do that. And then all of a sudden you're running the pattern and it's
Yeah.
great. So anyway, so I love that because that's exactly the example in action of like, yeah, you go and you do these things that seem so small, it seems almost stupid. And why are you even doing it? And you're exactly what you have to do because
Yeah.
those are like, you need that breakthrough.
Yeah. But I actually last year went through a period of time where I got thrown. It was actually my 3-year-old that I was telling you about that we dove into the nutrition part for.
Yeah.
He threw me off, and I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty scared of him for a while there. But I did exactly what you were just talking about. You know, I've been taking the steps, and I've been okay. You know, I'm lunging him today. I put the saddle on him today. I'm leaning over in bareback today. You know, just little things to build up my confidence, and not only mine but his, because his was pretty ruined from the poor nutrition and just kind of riding him while he was not feeling good. So I'm kind of having to build him back and myself at the same time. And I think a lot of people, especially when you're starting the younger horses, they want to rush it a little bit. And some horses handle the pressure really well, but they're like us, you know, they have their personalities. Some might handle it really well, and some might blow up over a stirrup just moving a little bit.
Yeah.
You can't treat every horse the same way, in my opinion. And I really learned that last year because I had plans to futurity this 3-year-old, but obviously after everything, I'm not. I'm taking it slow with him. You can have plans for something, but sometimes they don't go the way you want them to, and that's okay. You know, I've got several others I hope to maturity, but there's possibility, you know, one of them might be the same way, and one of them might handle it poorly, and one of them might be like, yeah, throw me to the wolves. They're individuals, just like we are.
All right, what about this? Can you share a mistake that you made with a horse that you are grateful that you made because it changed how you do things now?
So going back to my buckskin, Cisco, I was telling you about how I had to retire him.
Mhm.
Well, teenage Bethany did not ride him right in the sense of conditioning. You know, am I thankful I made that mistake for my future horses and my horses now? Yes. Am I thankful that I made the mistake? No, because it did, you know, cause me to retire Cisco. I feel like, you know, I didn't condition him right. You know, there was one time I pulled him out of the pasture to go to a barrel race and he hadn't rode at all that month. And that was, I feel like those just in the time you might not feel like that they're big mistakes, but I feel like things like that added up and caused him to have the bone chip and to have issues. And I think realizing that has really taught me that conditioning your horses, it's a big thing, and it's a preventative thing. You can prevent a lot of injuries by just conditioning them right. Look at the Brazilian barrel racers. Oh my gosh, I think they lope like 45 minutes straight, and their horses, I mean, they are phenomenal. And you can't just go loping a horse 45 minutes right off the bat either. You have to work it up to that. A friend of mine taught me this: 3 days on, 1 day off. You know, I do a medium work day, a heavy work day, and a light work day. Then they get a recovery day, and then so on. I find that works really well. My 22-year-old mare, knock on wood, doing phenomenal this way. She actually ran her fastest time last month ever since she had a baby. I bred her 3 years ago, and she foaled out in 2024, and then I brought her back, and she ran her fastest run, and that was just by conditioning her. You know, I didn't condition her as well. I conditioned her better, but I conditioned her a lot better this year than I have in previous years, and she seems like she's picking back up to where she used to be when she was younger. So that's a plus.
And that it's so good for horses of all age, because when they're younger, the conditioning is preventative and like it helps keep their longevity. And then when they're older, they stay in better condition and are healthier when they're older. So it's really all the time. You're right. Most people do not talk about conditioning enough.
No, they do not. A lot of people think they can just hop on and go. And I mean, even if you have an open horse that's completely trained, like Teaser, my mare is, she's great. I mean, you can take her and you just go. But they have to be conditioned. And if you don't, you're going to be paying for it out of your pocket, because you're going to have to be loading them up with injections or pain meds or whatever. And I, for one, don't like to do that. I don't like to spend unnecessary money, and I don't like my horses to, break down fast. I want a partner for as long as I can have them. So I'm going to feed them and ride them the way that they need to be that way.
Yeah. All right, well, let's close here. I'll just give you a couple fun rapid fire questions. So, most underrated horsemanship skill?
Let's see. I would go back to the groundwork with that one. I think a lot of people need to spend more time on the ground with their horses.
Mm-hmm. Biggest horse myth you want to kill?
Healthy as a horse. Not true. Horses will get sick or colic or whatever. The weather changes. Oh, my stomach hurts.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. And what is your go-to reset when you are frustrated?
Honestly, I pray about it. I am a big believer in praying. I pray before every single run. If I have a sick horse, I'm going to pray over them. Anytime I have something negative going on in my life, I'm going to pray about it. And I feel like that gives me the best sense of peace that I can have. And I usually go back to whatever I'm frustrated with, feeling a lot better.
Okay. And one thing you tell the version of yourself from 5 years ago?
Appreciate what you have. That would be a big thing.
It's a good reminder, because it's so important, and yet somehow we can all be so foolish in the moment.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm always like I was telling you, I will pick up any animal. But sometimes in doing so, I don't spend as much time with this one, or and things can happen. You can lose them, and this goes for people too. Spend time with your people, because you never know when that's the last time you're going to spend time with them. So, yeah.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This is so fun. I know people are going to get so much out of this, and just hearing just this other aspect of caring for your horses and being like the importance of nutrition and conditioning is so good for all the horses out there. So thank you for taking the time and just sharing your experiences.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and go enjoy your horses.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.